Richard Hayes, a wealthy American businessman, and Anika Sharma, an ambitious Indian woman living in Dubai, seemed like strangers whose worlds should never have crossed. Yet their online romance would spiral into obsession, betrayal, and finally, a brutal hotel bloodbath that shocked two continents. In early 2019, Richard Hayes sat alone in his Houston apartment night after night, the silence pressing down on him like a weight. At 46, he was successful in business but hollow in his personal life. His marriage had collapsed 2 years earlier, and though he filled his days with meetings and travel, the evenings felt endless. It was during these lonely stretches that he wandered on his social media groups, scrolling past strangers until one profile stopped him. The name read Anika Sharma, a woman living in Dubai. Her photographs showed her standing by glittering skyscrapers, sipping coffee in stylish cafes, and smiling with the kind of ease that Richard longed for. He sent her a simple message, not expecting much. To his surprise, she replied within minutes. What began as small talk about work and hobbies quickly grew into nightly conversations that stretched for hours. Richard found himself waking earlier just to check her messages and staying up later to catch her before she went to bed. She told him about her career in finance, about feeling isolated in a city full of strangers, and about the pressure of carrying responsibilities alone. Richard felt a kinship. He, too, was tired of being misunderstood, tired of pretending to be fine while quietly unraveling. Soon, their chats became more than words. Richard started sending small gifts, perfume, jewelry, even flowers delivered across continents. Each gesture was met with gratitude that felt deeply sincere. For the first time in years, he felt wanted, even cherished. Friends noticed a spark in him that had been absent since his divorce. He told them he had finally met someone who made him believe in love again. What Richard didn't know was that the bond he treasured so deeply would eventually draw him into the darkest chapter of his life. By the summer of 2020, Richard's attachment to Anika had grown into something he believed was unshakable. Every morning began with her messages, and every night ended with her voice notes. The distance between Houston and Dubai felt less like a barrier and more like a temporary inconvenience. Richard had always been generous, but with Anika, his giving turned into devotion. He sent thousands of dollars to help with what she described as mounting bills, unexpected medical expenses, and even the down payment on a car. To him, it wasn't charity, it was investment in the future he envisioned with her. When global travel slowly reopened after months of restrictions, Richard saw his chance. He scheduled a trip to Dubai, telling colleagues it was to secure business contracts, but the true purpose was far more personal. He booked a suite in one of the city's most prestigious hotels, a room overlooking the shimmering marina where yachts drifted lazily by. He imagined proposing to Anika there, offering her the security and companionship she had confessed she longed for. Anika agreed to meet him, but her excitement was complicated. She had enjoyed the flow of money and the emotional attention, yet the thought of seeing him in person tightened a knot of anxiety in her stomach. She was burdened with debts far greater than she admitted, and Richard's financial help had become her lifeline. Meeting him face to face meant either deepening the lie or finding a way out. Still, she told herself she could manage. He was kind, wealthy, and eager to please, qualities she had learned to exploit. As the date of Richard's arrival drew closer, he counted the days with childlike anticipation. Anika, meanwhile, rehearsed her smile in the mirror, hiding the truth that her heart was nowhere near as committed as his. Richard's plane touched down in Dubai in the thick heat of August, and as he stepped out into the dazzling city, he felt a mix of nerves and exhilaration. For months, he had imagined this moment, the first time he would finally see Anika outside the confines of a glowing screen. At the hotel, he prepared carefully, laying out his best suit and rehearsing the words he thought might capture how much she meant to him. When Anika arrived that evening, dressed in a flowing red gown that caught the soft light of the lobby chandelier, Richard's breath caught. She looked even more radiant than her photographs. To him, it felt like a dream becoming real. The early hours together passed like something out of a romance film. They dined at the hotel's rooftop restaurant, overlooking the city's glittering skyline. Staff remembered the pair smiling and leaning close, champagne glasses raised in celebration. Richard felt a rush of relief. His leap of faith had paid off. For the first time in years, happiness didn't feel temporary. He believed this was the beginning of a permanent life together. But beneath Anika's polished exterior, unease simmered. She played her role convincingly, laughing at his jokes and holding his hand, yet her mind wandered elsewhere. She knew Richard was already invested far more deeply than she was. Each compliment, each romantic word from him was a reminder that she was feeding a fantasy she could not sustain. What Richard could not see was the double life she had been living. Anika was already involved with another man, a nightclub manager who provided the thrill and danger Richard never could. The businessman saw devotion, while the woman across the table was already calculating how much longer she could keep up the illusion before her secrets came crashing into the open. As the days unfolded, Richard's excitement gave way to impatience. He wanted certainty, not just whispered promises or affectionate gestures. He spoke of Texas, of a home they could share, and of the life he imagined for them away from Dubai's fast, restless energy. For him, the idea of leaving her behind after this trip was unthinkable. For Anika, his words tightened the trap she felt closing around her. She wasn't ready to walk away from the freedom, the money, or the other man who had already claimed a piece of her life. Hotel cameras recorded her nightly departures, slipping out of the suite long after Richard had fallen asleep. One evening, she crossed the polished lobby floor to meet the man who had been in the shadows all along, the nightclub manager. Unlike Richard, he was brash and reckless, with a violent streak that both frightened and enticed her. She confessed to him that Richard was becoming suffocating, that his demands for commitment were overwhelming. But what unsettled her most was the thought of losing the financial support she depended on. The manager listened with growing resentment. He had always envied the comfort Richard's money afforded her, the car, the gifts, the lifestyle she flaunted. Fueled by jealousy and greed, he proposed a solution that was as dangerous as it was final. Together, they could take Richard's wealth and erase him from her life forever. Anika hesitated at first, torn between fear and desperation. Yet the more she considered it, the more she convinced herself it was the only way to escape the tightening grip of Richard's expectations. From that moment, their meetings shifted in tone. No longer casual encounters, they became strategy sessions, whispered plans about timing, opportunity, and the perfect moment to make Richard's devotion his downfall. The evening of August 14th began quietly, with the city lights of Dubai glittering beyond the windows of Richard's luxury suite. He had ordered dinner to the room, determined to make the night memorable. Plates of rich cuisine and fine wine filled the table, symbols of his devotion and his hope for a future with Anika. To Richard, this was another step toward proving that he was serious about her, that he could give her everything she wanted. To Anika, it was the night when everything would be decided. She had already exchanged covert messages with the nightclub manager, confirming that the plan would go forward before Richard ever suspected a thing. As the hours passed, Richard pressed Anika for answers she could not give. He wanted commitment, clarity, a promise that she would leave Dubai and build a life with him in America. She responded with practiced vagueness, offering smiles that masked her unease. At some point, she excused herself, retreating into the bathroom. There, with trembling hands, she checked her phone one last time. The signal was clear. The manager was on his way. Through a service corridor, he slipped into the suite like a shadow. What followed was sudden and violent. Richard, startled by the intrusion, fought back with desperate strength, overturning furniture as he tried to defend himself. But the knife was relentless. Blow after blow tore through him until the room was soaked in red. The pristine bed sheets, the polished marble, even the white curtains became stained with the evidence of brutality. When the attack ended, Richard lay lifeless, his body marked by savage wounds. Anika sat trembling, scratching her arms with the blade to feign her own survival story. The manager fled through the exit, leaving behind a scene of horror disguised as a lover's quarrel turned deadly. The investigation began within minutes of the grisly discovery. Dubai authorities, known for their speed and precision, sealed off the suite and examined every detail. At first, the scene suggested a violent argument between lovers. Anika appeared shaken, with shallow cuts on her arms, and the bloody chaos around Richard's body gave the impression of a frenzied outburst. Yet detectives quickly noticed inconsistencies. The angles of the stab wounds indicated an attacker who approached with force and intent, not a struggle between equals. The cuts on Anika's arms were too neat, too controlled, to be defensive wounds. And most telling of all, the hotel safe had been emptied of cash. Security footage provided the breakthrough. Hours of recordings revealed Anika meeting a man in the lobby late at night, slipping away while Richard slept upstairs. The man was identified as a nightclub manager with a violent history. Further digging uncovered a stream of text messages between him and Anika, messages that transformed the case. They spoke of Richard's wealth, of his growing obsession with her, and of a plan to end the relationship permanently. Their words were not born out of fear, but out of calculation and greed. Authorities launched a citywide search. Within days, the manager was captured at Dubai International Airport, attempting to flee to India with a hastily packed bag and a forged itinerary. Faced with overwhelming evidence, he confessed to the killing, though he tried to shift the blame onto Anika, claiming she had manipulated him into carrying out the crime. Anika was arrested as his co-conspirator, her glamorous social media persona collapsing under the weight of her new identity as an accused murderer. Back in America, Richard's friends and family struggled to comprehend the cruelty of it all. A man who crossed oceans for love had instead walked into betrayal, greed, and a carefully staged bloodbath that ended in tragedy.